Hey listeners, Elizabeth here. Before we get started, a note on our content. This podcast centers on the history of beauty and fashion, and as such, we often discuss fatphobia, diet culture, and weight loss. Detailed content warnings can be found in the episode description. Also, this is an adult show featuring adult themes and language, so bear that in mind if you choose to listen. All right, let's get into it.
Now, there's a very big famous rumor about her weight loss that refuses to die. But before I get into that, I want to take a side tour to tell you about the physiologic pasta rumor.
What?
Yes.
I think I saw them open for Green Day when I was the physiologic pasta rumor.
That definitely is a jam band.
Welcome to Vanity Veritas, where three vain friends dive into the history of beauty, fashion, and culture, trying to figure out how we got here and why we care so damn much. We're your hosts, Christina Cole-Geddes,
Elizabeth Urbanzik,
and Chelsea Feltman. In each episode, one of us will present a topic related to historical fads, fashion icons, and beauty standards in an attempt to connect the past with the present, always asking ourselves, does anything ever really change?
All right, Chelsea, you are next up in our line of fire. This is your episode. What are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to talk about the late, the great, the legendary Maria Callas.
Woohoo!
Hey listeners, it's Chelsea. So we got so excited during this conversation that we kind of skipped over some pretty helpful basic information to get you into the episode. So to catch you up, Maria Callas was one of the most important and famous opera singers of the 20th century. And a lot of people would argue that she remains one of the most important figures in opera to this day, certainly one of the most iconic presences and personas in the art form. Also helpful to know that at the time of her fame, opera was a much more mainstream form of entertainment in the United States, and opera singers were extremely high-profile celebrities, unlike today. So, hope that helps. Love you. Bye. As non-opera singers, I just wanted to start by asking, what do you know about her? What comes to mind when you hear that name?
Chic turban.
Chic turban. Yes. Good.
I think I first became aware, again, I am not an opera singer. I'm a musical theater singer. So Maria Callas has always just sort of been like opera diva in my brain. But I think I first became aware of her. There's a stack of books behind me, listeners. And one of those books is Kevin Aquan's Face Forward.
Oh, that's
And he transformed Celine Dion into Maria Callas in
you're
that
kidding.
book. No, I'll get it. Hang on a second.
I have that book too.
I'll show you.
I have all the Kevin Aquan books behind me too. Wow, we really are vain.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Elizabeth, because I think even to people who don't know her as an opera singer, she has an iconic face and presence. And I would say she is a style icon. She's a fashion icon and has inspired so many people across the arts, just kind of the image of her.
She's like an early it girl.
You could say that. She definitely was a big time celebrity.
Oh God, that's right. That image. Sorry, listeners, Elizabeth is opening the Kevin Aquan book, Making Faces, and that is Celine Dion as Maria Callas looking fabulous.
Yeah,
So
Kevin
chic.
Aquan was all about transforming current celebrities into classic celebrities. My favorite one is he did Martha Stewart as Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, I always think about Susan Sarandon as Betty Davis.
Also incredible. But yeah, that is literally my first time I've ever heard of Maria Callas, was being 17 years old, obsessed with makeup, and begging my parents to get me the very expensive Kevin Aquan Face Forward for Christmas.
I'm sending you both a picture of what I picture, and probably what you picture in your mind when you think of Maria Callas.
I think of a really intense eye look.
Okay, definitely.
Very listeners, we're looking at a photo of Maria Callas in a very chic black coat, or perchance a cape, and a large black hat. It's a black and white photo, very crisp and sharp. Black gloves, a kind of gestured hand looking.
Black leather gloves.
Yes, black leather gloves.
Yeah.
And a look that says, I'm fucking hotter than you.
And a strong winged eye. That's what I think about when I think Maria Callas.
Yes.
It's the kind of thing that Amy Winehouse was exaggerating.
So what if I told you that this image that we see of her, the one that is plastered across posters and recreated in Kevin O'Quan's books, is actually representative of a time in her life and career when she was in a state of vocal decline, and although was incredibly famous and successful, was like actually very ill. What?
Like just like Celine Dion.
Just
Isn't that crazy how that dovetails?
Yes. So I'm going to send you a picture of what Maria Callas looked like when she actually was having what people describe as her best singing years, the years when she rose to fame and became the sort of queen of the operatic stage. I'm sending you another picture.
Listeners, what you don't know is the picture that Chelsea has sent us previously in this chat is a Jesus statue that looks like Phil Collins. So every time I open up our chat, that is the first thing I see. Oh, okay. Oh, that is not what I would have expected.
This is much more like it's giving Liz Taylor and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Interesting.
Set in the 1800s.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little bit of Joan Crawford's Mildred Pierce.
Yes. And she's much more filled out. Like, I hate
Very
that term, but like
fuller
she's definitely
face.
got, she's curvier. The first picture you sent us, she is very like Dior chic. And here she is much sort of like rounder, not in a chubby way, just in a curvier way.
No, but she's got like rounded, like you can see the roundness of her belly and her breasts and everything, and like even the shoulders, and her face is much rounder and fuller and softer.
Mm-hmm.
So granted, she is in costume in this picture. Her body is very different and her whole look is very different from what we've been like shown so many times over and over. So I wanted to sort of talk about the popular conception of her and how it ties in with both weight loss and weight loss myths, like diet myths, chronic illness and beauty, and then I think just general misconceptions about women, about artists, and how they live their lives and what happens to them. So we'll just start at the beginning. She is born Maria Anna Cecilia Sophia Kalogeropoulos. Yeah.
So she's Greek, I imagine?
So she's Greek. Yeah. Okay. She's one of the most famous Greeks. She's born on December 2nd in 1923 in New York City, actually, to Greek immigrant parents. By all accounts, her parents had a terrible, unhappy marriage, and her mother was disappointed to have given birth to yet another girl.
Oof. Sick burn.
Yeah. In 1937, her parents' marriage deteriorates. So at this point, she's 14 years old, and her mom brings her and her sister back to Athens. Her mother, by all accounts, was very ambitious. She was kind of like a Mama Rose, but worse. She pressured Maria to sing in order to make money for the family. Basically,
both of us just made the same face. Both Christine and I just made that, the teeth emoji, the I Love Lucy face.
The grimace.
Yeah, immediate stage mom.
So yes, Maria's mother, Evangelia, kind of pushes her to sing in order to earn money for the family. During World War II, they struggled a lot financially. There are also accounts that she pushed her to go on dates with foreign soldiers, which is really creepy and gross, in exchange for food. And suffice it to say, it was a very bad and exploitative mother-daughter relationship. And Maria has said of her childhood, "My sister was slim and beautiful and friendly. My mother always preferred her. I was the ugly duckling, fat and clumsy and unpopular. It is a cruel thing to make a child feel ugly and unwanted. I'll never forgive her for taking my childhood away. During all the years I should have been playing and growing up, I was singing or making money. Everything I did for them was mostly good, and everything they did to me was mostly bad."
Oh, God. She is like truly Baby June.
Truly.
Yeah. Also, the whole time you were saying about what her mom used to put her through, I was like, this is just the plot of the song Fancy.
Oh my God.
She's fancy, but she's resentful about it, as opposed to Fancy, who's like,
instead of, "I understand why you did it. I understand now, Mama. I understand."
got me an elegant mansion and got me a Georgia mansion and an elegant New York townhouse flat, and I ain't going back.
She begins her studies at the Greek National Conservatoire in 1937, the same year they arrive back in Athens. And this is mostly due to her mother's insistence. And she quickly establishes herself as a phenomenal talent and also a model student. She graduates that program and then continues her studies at the Athens Conservatoire. And there, she also distinguishes herself with her talent, but mostly with her uncompromising work ethic. She has said that she would go to the conservatoire at 10 in the morning and leave with the last pupil. She would be there for 10 hours a day devouring music. When teachers asked why she did this, she said that, quote, even with the least talented pupil, he can teach you something that you, the most talented, might not be able to do.
I mean, she's incredibly tenacious. She seems like she's somebody who had a lot of natural talent, but also I know that I really respect performers like that who are willing to soak up as much information as possible. It's one of the reasons I've always loved Liza Minnelli so much. I remember she said, my greatest talent is surrounding myself with people who are more talented than I am. And learning from them. Like she like soaked up all of the information she could get from singers like Charles Aznavour. And it is true. I think like all of us are performers in some respect. I always have really liked that sort of classroom setting where you get to observe the teacher helping somebody with something completely different than the kind of things that you need to work on, because you do end up learning something in the process the more you sit in a classroom setting and learn as much as humanly possible.
I also just want to say, like there's something about the indoctrination when you're a child into performing. Like I have been working as a performer in some capacity since I was like 4. I believe wholeheartedly in everything that Elizabeth just said, and I think it's interesting that like as a child who was working and earning money for her family, I just think the narrative of artistry and work, like what gets marketed as work ethic, is really interesting, like because it's a very different way your brain processes that.
And there's a fine line between like a strong work ethic and straight up abuse.
Yeah,
especially with young kids.
This is true, and especially in classical conservatory environments, which I am a graduate of. And I think, Christina, thank you for bringing that up, because it just occurred to me, it's easy to look at her as a college student, as a young professional, but she's 14 through 16 during this time of her life. She is a child. She is very young.
Right. And that school of, like, I sometimes stop and think about, like, when you hear 14-year-olds or 16-year-olds say that kind of shit, and everyone's like, wow, old soul. They just always knew what they wanted to do. But sometimes I'm also like, dude, when I was 14, I just want you to think about being like, I love Bewitched. And then being like,
right. Right. So moving along, she makes her professional debut in 1941. And her leading role debut is the following year in the role of Tosca in Puccini's opera of the same name, which continues to be probably her most iconic role of her life. She continues to sing a bunch of leading roles throughout Greece until 1945. And basically, she has a string of triumphs. Like, all killer, no filler. People have never heard anything like her. It's just like boom, 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 boom.
She's Chapel Roan.
She's Chapel Roan at this point.
Like, where did she come from? My goodness.
In 1945, she goes to New York City. And there are different accounts of what happened. But basically, she turns down a contract at the Metropolitan Opera because the contract they offered her wasn't good enough.
Fuck yeah, Maria.
Fuck yeah. She has said, they offered me a beginner's contract. And she wasn't going to take that. So instead, she goes to Italy. She makes her Italian debut, I think in Verona. I could be wrong. Here she meets an older, industrial, wealthy magnate named Giovanni Battista Meneghiti. He is 30 years older than her. They meet in 1949 and they marry. And
Damn it. I knew it was going to marry.
They marry.
The amount of parallels with Celine Dion, I can't handle it.
It really is. I wasn't fully on board when you pulled out the Kevin O'Quan, but now I think it was really on the nose.
Just saying. New thesis statement for this entire episode.
So they marry, and he becomes her manager. Sorry, I'm laughing. It's literally Celine Dion.
Chelsea, do we need to take a knee on this?
Oh my God. It's a little bit hard for me to get a read on this marriage. My impression from the things I was able to glean is that it was probably a bit paternalizing, but people say that his nurturing and his support and his money were really what allowed her to flourish and establish that career during those years. So I don't know what to say except that it probably wasn't perfect and maybe not a dynamic that I would want, but that he did really nurture her career and support her in many ways, both material and not material.
And again, like I feel like when you're a child who is charged with making money for their family and growing up really fast, I'm sure there's an attraction to that kind of relationship, and like that kind of attachment and safety feels good and allows
Sure.
you to feel safe to create.
And
Sure.
especially as a woman in this era too. It's like,
Yeah, what year is it?
They meet in 1949 and they marry sometime shortly after that. So we're talking early 1950s.
100%. So this is still a situation of like women really needing to marry. Like the element of financial security in a marriage is still pretty dominant in your choice of partner.
Yeah.
And legal security. Like the
Yes.
way the law works is not in your favor as a woman.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So her Met debut does finally come in 1956, and this is singing Bellini's Norma, also a very famous signature role that she's becomes known for. She also develops a long-standing relationship with the Royal Opera House, which is in London, and this is also where she ends her stage career with a very famous production of Tosca staged by Franco Zeffirelli, who I'm sure many people know, not just as an opera director, but also a director of film.
Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet,
that's what
exactly. Known for really lavish, beautiful sets and sort of larger than life productions. So why am I telling you this? Because for most of her life and during the height of her singing career, like the height of her vocal abilities, Maria Callas was a bigger bodied woman. She certainly does not fit the image that we have seen in these, classic photographs and
she's different than like the Dior new look.
She doesn't. Yes, she is that image of her as like the perfect like Dior new look doesn't coincide with when she was actually rising to fame and singing her best.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It's almost like how we think of Mariah Carey, like early Mariah Carey with her like natural big curly hair and dressed far more conservatively.
Yeah.
And then when she really hit late 90s, early 2000s and became more of like she leaned into like the hip hoppy part of the R&B that she sang and did a lot. Like the image that we have right now of Mariah Carey is so different than who she was when she was putting out her first albums that really made her a star.
Which is also, wait, this is interesting because that image changes a lot when she divorces her manager husband, Tommy Mottola.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Like she becomes
We're just talking
a lot
about divas
more
today, friends.
We're just talking about divas marrying their mentors.
Yeah.
Divas marrying their mentors, honestly, a whole episode.
Okay, so I want to talk about her weight loss. So she's had this like stellar rise to fame from like the mid to late 40s until about the early to mid 50s. Lots of things have been said. There is a quote of hers that is often trotted around where she said that she didn't feel good in her body. She felt tired all the time. She felt that she couldn't move well around the stage. She also had said that she felt that she needed a more angular face and body in order to act the sorts of dramatic roles that she was singing. And we also know that there are these apocryphal stories where certainly her family, but also some of her colleagues and supposedly friends would sort of joke about her weight with her, ridicule her for her weight.
Gross.
Truly gross. So at some point in the early 50s, she loses about 80 pounds.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the rumors abound. Now, there's a very big famous rumor about her weight loss that refuses to die. But before I get into that, I want to take a side tour to tell you about the physiologic pasta rumor.
What?
Yes.
I think I saw them open for Green Day when I was physiologic pasta rumor.
That definitely is a jam band name.
They tour with Fish.
They tour with Fish.
Yeah, they're next to the string cheese incident, right?
Right?
What's that band?
Yes. Okay. So basically, in 1955, a Italian pasta company creates like an ad campaign in the newspapers in Italy saying that Maria Callas lost weight by eating their healthy physiological pasta.
That's the Mediterranean diet that I want to be on.
I was going to say, I'm on board. Say more. Like get me this physiological pasta ASAP.
I actually found an article from People magazine from 1955 that is so funny that I need to read it to you.
Please
About
do.
fizz past?
Yes. Okay. It says, Manhattan-born soprano Maria Meneghini Callas, recent victor in a high E-flat free-for-all with an octet of Chicago process servers, I have no idea what that means, plunged a legal fork into an Italian macaroni company. Wait for it. On the tines of her suit.
Oh my God.
Maria's ex-physician and husband's brother-in-law, Dr. Giovanni Cazzaroli, the Pastificio Pantanella Company, and Prince Marc Antonio Pacelli, who is Pastificio's legal eagle, as well as a nephew of Pope Pius XII.
This goes all the way to the top.
At no point did I know where any of these sentences was going. La Callas, 31.
Oh my God, there's more.
Oh, yeah. La Callas, 31, weighing in at a svelte 135 pounds, charged that Dr. Cazzaroli had issued a false certificate, ballyhooed by the pasta firm in ads, stating that she had shed an unsvelte 44 pounds by gobbling quantities of Pastificio Pantanella's dietetic no-cow macaroni. Maria fumed a scornful phooey on the, quote, physiological pasta. The prima donna, who once declined singing Madame Butterfly because she scaled an unlepidopterous 212 pounds.
I'm sorry, a what? And what was the word you just used?
It's funny you should ask because unlepidopterous. So lepidopterous means bug or insect, like butterfly-like. So she refused to sing Madame Butterfly because she was an unbutterfly-esque 212 pounds. Disgusting.
Wow.
Now complained, quote, the public wants Callas to be noble and delicate. Woe betide if, opposed to this idealistic spirituality, the public should discover a behind-the-scenes maneuver whereby a dainty butterfly is achieved only through a cure with special macaroni.
Oh my God.
But basically, she took this pasta company to court. They tried to go up to the Pope to get out of it. The Pope's was like, please get us out of this. And I don't think that worked. I think they had to pay her.
They couldn't get the pious nepotism working?
No, they could not. They couldn't get a holy, I don't know what you call it, a papal edict. But they did have to pay her damages and put a retraction and apology in the newspapers.
Wow. Wait, I'm confused. I feel like I got lost in the unlepidopterous of it all. So wait, she sued them because she lost weight, or she sued them? I'm so confused.
She sued them for claiming that she lost weight by eating their diet pasta.
Oh, understood. So it's not real at all. So this wasn't like an Instagram ad spokesperson.
No, they made it up.
I get it. Okay. There's such flowery language in that article that I got distracted by, and I was like, I completely lost the plot as to what this lawsuit was about.
I mean, I wish People magazine still wrote stuff like this. I would read it.
Absolutely. Can I just flag something that I noticed?
Yes.
Which is that they advertise that she's a slender 135 pounds, something like that, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think today in People magazine, 135 pounds would be considered full.
Okay, listeners. Now, when I first heard that number, I really got a shock because as somebody who lives in a larger body, the number 130 being considered full sounds bananas to me. And I'm like, has Christina just been living in Los Angeles too long? That can't be right. Until I found out that one of the seminal classic rom-coms of my formative years, Bridget Jones's Diary, in that film, Renee Zellweger apparently gained 30 pounds and in the end was 136 pounds. That character that we were all convinced had a problem with her weight in that film was a 5'4" actress who weighed 136 pounds. Okay, back to the episode.
And it reminds me, we talked about this on the last episode, and I fear it will not be the last time, but it reminds me of the same magazine, People magazine, all these tabloids in the early aughts being like, so-and-so got down to 95 pounds and that was bad. But then also like the next week they'd be the same weight in a bikini and it'd be like best beach bod ever.
Yeah.
Right. Or we'll never know if they do because we've decided that that's too big of a number.
Yeah.
Yes. So I want to move on to probably the best known rumor, myth, apocryphal story about Callas's weight loss, which is, are you ready? Can I get a drum roll, please? The tapeworm.
Fuck yeah!
Okay, so first of all, I want to say this is like, if you are an opera fan, if you know Maria Callas, like one of the first things that comes to mind will be, oh, she lost weight with a tapeworm. This is a rumor that like refuses to die.
It's like Catherine the Great and the horses. It's
Yes.
just like, it's so not true, but it just
is.
follows her around for all of history.
So I tried to look into this, and what I found was something so, just many twists and turns that I did not expect.
Much like a tapeworm in your intestines.
Oh,
What
no.
are the...
It was right there. I couldn't let it go. I'm so sorry.
Something about this is giving like the magic school bus intestine episode.
Oh, we're shrinking down. We're going to meet that tapeworm.
At my old school, we were never allowed to end up in the toilet. Oh,
Come
God.
on, students. All right, let's go. Okay, so what are the origins of this rumor? So interestingly, according to her former private chef and also her ex-husband, she may have actually had a tapeworm. Not because she took one to lose weight, but because one of her favorite dishes was beef tartare. And a great way to get a tapeworm is by eating raw meat.
Don't take away tartare from me. I like it too much.
There are some accounts that she may actually have had a tapeworm infection that may have coincided with her suddenly dropping all this weight. And I just want to say, it's not my place to surmise how she lost the weight. We're going to get into like another possible correlation or causation later. She did say that she herself went on a very rigorous diet. And by some modern accounts, we might say that she had an eating disorder. But again, I don't want to like conjecture about somebody's mental health or possible eating disorder or diet when I don't have any evidence to do that. And that person's not here to speak for themselves. But anyway, but then I wanted to delve into a little bit into like the history and veracity of tapeworm diets. So I actually found out something really interesting, which is, and I'm going to try to summarize this very broadly because we could do a whole episode on tapeworms, but
Patreon exclusive.
So here's the thing. Although ads and claims for tapeworm pills for the purpose of losing weight go back at least to the 1800s, it is nigh impossible to verify that any of these pills actually contained tapeworms or tapeworm eggs, which is usually what they claim. There are ads going back, Christina, to the time, as you said, when people started wanting this consumptive, thin body, when people started tight lacing into corsets, there are all kinds of pills and cures and things advertised in magazines and papers to help you like lose weight with no effort, no danger, etc.
No danger. Just eat a fucking
Eat a fucking worm. And I found an interesting paper sort of focused on Maria Callas and on the history of tapeworm diets in a journal called Parasitologia. I don't know how you say it, but it is a journal of parasitology, basically. And basically, tapeworm diets have been a source of fake news, what we would now call fake news stories, at least going back to like 1912. There was a big unverified story published in the Washington Post about tapeworm vendors. Doctors had to come forward and say, this is not true. Not only is this dangerous, but this is not true. Like we cannot verify what's in these pills. And this keeps popping up again. It happens again in the 1930s. It happened again a few years ago. And the Washington State Surgeon General had to issue a warning, like, don't eat tapeworms. Like a woman bought some tapeworms off the internet.
It's like ivermectin or something. Just
Yes.
Well,
like,
ivermectin's how you get rid of it, Elizabeth.
that's true. That's the dewormer. You take ivermectin after you buy your
Is that why
tapeworm
was
pills.
everyone taking? Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It didn't occur to me even when this came across some of my research, but like, do we even have the technology in the 18 and early 1900s to encapsulate a living tapeworm? Like, I don't, in my head, I'm thinking about.
I truly don't know. I think, right. Like, even if you could get the eggs into a capsule, how do we know that they're alive? We don't
Like,
have
they're not.
refrigeration. We don't have laboratories to.
Right. I keep thinking about like how some of my fancier vitamins are like liquid gel caps with floating spheres that have like time release in them. And that's what they're very proud of.
Yes. So basically, the take home is while the idea and the claims around tapeworm diets go back hundreds of years, we actually have no way of knowing whether the pills that were sold contained them, whether they were effective for that reason. And it's almost 100% certain that Maria Callas did not intentionally ingest a tapeworm to lose weight. There are other reasons why she lost weight. And furthermore, tapeworm diets probably are not, I mean, obviously they're not a good idea. They're probably not that effective anyway. When you look up the symptoms for tapeworm infection, weight loss is not even near the top. You can lose some weight, but you can also get a lot hungrier and eat a lot more carbs because that's what the tapeworm desires.
Oh, God.
I feel like I have a tapeworm now.
Christina, I'm sure you don't have a tapeworm.
Anytime we're craving carbs, we're just like, it's clearly a tapeworm.
No, it's just we're talking about it so
I'm eating
much.
for two.
I feel like I feel like this is a feed me Seymour. I hate it.
I'm so sorry. We're gonna get out of this soon. I just want to say, according to an article.
Don't say anything more that's going to make my butt cheek squeeze together.
Like, I'm going to tell you why you don't want a tapeworm. Although this is according to an article in Vice, although they generally only cause minor symptoms that are easily treated. I'm sorry, you're not going to like this. They can grow up to 9 meters. And now, serious faces, they can cause life-threatening issues like meningitis, epilepsy, and dementia. So,
Cash.
Right?
So you forget how gross everything is.
That's true.
You forget the 9-foot worm in 9-meter worm. Oh.
All this is to say, this is probably not an effective diet because any weight loss you experience is going to be outweighed by your fucking meningitis.
It's like tuberculosis. You're skinny, but at what cost? You have chronic diarrhea and your hair is falling out.
You're like a fucking zombie.
So thin, so very thin.
Yeah, do you shit the tapeworm out? Like, what happens?
You do. You take a vermicide, an anti-parrot. You take the pill that kills it and then you shit it out. Usually in segments.
Wait, so that's what everyone was like, that sounds like a good idea. I'll do that.
Again, sure. At what cost? At what cost do you wish to be thin?
I don't fuck being a little fleshy, which, by the way, I've never met a straight man who doesn't want to grab onto a little something.
Correct.
Let me be real. And instead, I'm going to eat a fucking tapeworm? Could you imagine shitting out a tapeworm like with your boyfriend in the other room? Sorry, we're like interrupting you like crazy. That was just fucking disgusting.
Look, I needed a lot of help to get through that too, so I appreciate you both. Okay, let's kill the tapeworm.
Please.
Let's kill the tapeworm rumors. Maria Callas did not use a tapeworm to lose weight. And this should be common knowledge, but I think that people still, and also I will say people kind of joke about it. People kind of use it as a punchline, which is like, that's a fucking terrible infection to have. And I feel bad for times that I joked about it when I was younger. Tapeworms are no laughing matter. PSA.
The more you know.
So, okay. Concurrent with this weight loss, 2 things start to happen. She gets praised a lot in the press and by her colleagues. I don't have the exact quote with me, but there is a famous critic who basically says, in addition to her stunning, glorious, once-in-a-generation voice, she is also now a beauty.
God damn it.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting here, though, like Callas getting bullied for her weight her whole life and even on the stage, even by her colleagues. When she loses the weight, people sort of need to, I don't know that it's quite ridiculing her, but the public feels this need to kind of come up with these ridiculous explanations for how she did it and call attention to it. It's like no one will fucking leave her alone. She can't win.
tale as old as time, man.
Right?
Like that's
Right.
it. Like, I mean, it's part of like the Ozempic conversation that we're having now
Yes.
with like,
Totally.
and it's something that we have spoken about before, this idea of if you make the effort, you are punished. If you don't make the effort, you are punished. How you make the effort is punished, whether it's if you take what is considered the easy way out with surgery or medication, that's bad. If you torture yourself with diet and Pilates, that's better. But if you have an eating disorder, that's worse. And in the end, you still end up with a thinner body. So it is again, it is the vanity aspect that we're always talking about. It is how much you look like you care and how much you are willing to either punish yourself or it's that redemptive quality. It's like the redemptive diet. You're doing it to hurt yourself
Mm.
and punish yourself rather than, oh, I don't like living that, like I don't like the way the world treats me in this body. I'm going to do whatever I can to change it. And then people are like, no, you did that the wrong way. That was the incorrect way.
You know what it is, though? And this is like always the thing that's going to get our fucking goat every episode. But like, it's when women dare to show effort. It's
Yeah.
when we
Mm.
dare to show our work. And like, if you lose too much weight and it's too fast and it's this, like you tried too hard to look a certain way, or you tried too hard not to look a certain way. Like, you have to constantly be in this vein, but you have to be in this like this vein of like the myth of the effortless French girl.
Yeah.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, she's a French woman's never dieting. She eats rich food all the time. She's just walking all over Paris. That's why she's so thin. And she doesn't dry her hair. It's just like that. Like this idea that you just stumbled into your body looking beautiful and thin is like this fucked up ideal that we cannot let go of. And we ridicule anyone who looks like they made an effort to fit in any capacity.
Right. Absolutely. So something that I want to call attention to is that I am not so I've struggled with eating disorders. I have dieted, I have lost weight, not I don't think a really significant enough amount to talk about being treated differently post weight loss. But something that I have heard and read from many people who have lost significant amounts of weight is that the assumptions people make after the weight loss, usually that this person is now healthier and must be feeling better, right?
Mm.
And a lot of people will say, that's actually not true. I was at my thinnest, at my worst, my lowest point emotionally, or none of my problems have actually gone away. I was just talking to a friend about this recently who said, actually, none of my vitals are different. It's just that people treat me better.
Yeah.
Anyway, concurrent with Callas's weight loss, two things start to happen. She gets praised. She becomes like this fashion icon, in addition to being, one of the greatest singers ever to live. But also, this is around the time people start to notice that her voice is declining. She is having vocal troubles that start subtle at first. And in fact, Joan Sutherland, another legendary opera singer, went as far as to say, quote, I don't think that anyone who heard Callas after 1955 really heard the Callas voice.
Mm.
So the Callas voice that just like was a once in a generation talent, was unlike anything anybody ever heard, that could do anything. This is the thing. She had such a broad range, not just in the high to low sense of range, but in her ability to sing different kinds of music, different vocal weights, different musical styles. She just could do more than anybody ever. That voice, that performer really only kind of existed for a period of around 10, 12 years at the early part of her career. And then she continued to perform for another decade, really, giving great dramatic performances, but according to people who had heard her before that, not the same vocally. Which I think is so interesting because like the image we have of her just doesn't line up with when she was her best singer.
It reminds me so much of the way that I learned how to sing was listening to Whitney Houston.
Mm.
And that is a performer who's, when she like sort of had her comeback before she passed, and she did that like Oprah interview and all that, and she recorded Million Dollar Bill and her sort of final album, her voice had deteriorated significantly. And it is funny, like if you go back and think, if somebody heard Whitney Houston for the first time on that album and not on her first few going up to like the Bodyguard soundtrack when she was really like at her peak, which she was also talks about, she was like miserable in her actual life, very skinny, very miserable, but still putting out amazing, tunes. Yeah, there is something incredible about how her vocal quality changed from drug use and all these different things until finally she passed. But yeah, that is a huge element for some singers. Like they sound amazing when they are first discovered. Then you find out that they are miserable at their absolute height while they are so famous and so skinny, until they finally decline. So there's an interesting parallel there with the demands of being a vocalist and how natural talent and training can become exploited and slowly destroyed with overuse and what you do to your body.
Yeah. So people will often credit her vocal decline to her weight loss, which I think, look, there are a couple famous opera singers who have lost a lot of weight, and it does change the voice. Singing is such a physical activity, specifically operatic singing is such a whole body activity, that your body feeling different and having like a different mass to it would drastically change your relationship to breath support. And some singers are able to adjust, but I think if you asked most people, they would say they never quite sounded the same.
Whoa.
Not that that's necessarily better or worse, but you can hear a difference. And I'm sure this has also happened with singers in other genres. It's just that my knowledge mostly extends to classical singers.
And it's also very, like you say, operatic singing is very specific. Like that is it's a full body. There is not to say that all other singing doesn't require some technique, but if you are to fill a house without any amplification, there is a vocal athleticism and technique to that is elite level in terms of what you are able to do with your voice.
Precisely. Basically, our bodies are the amplification system for our voices. We don't sing with microphones. So that just, if the body changes, it's like you changed your audio equipment, you changed your stereo system. So I think that while there is probably some correlation, I think it's an oversimplification to simply say that she lost weight and it wrecked her voice. Callas herself attributed her vocal changes to a loss of confidence resulting from a loss of breath support, which I think is interesting. She feels that she lost a sense of breath support or a sense of strength, what she called strength of her diaphragm, which caused a loss of confidence, which also is very, very common. Oftentimes, a psychological issue will cause a physical issue or vice versa. A small physical issue causes a lot of anxiety and psychological issues, which then makes the physical worse. It's this I think as performers, even though we perform in different, across different genres, I think we all know what that's like.
Yeah, listeners, I just want to be here as your non-singer proxy and say that I only sing in I'm a mean karaoke singer. I really can take a house down, but I'm like very riveted by this conversation because I don't know shit about breath support in the capacity that you're talking about.
I could do like an entire podcast on breath support, but I will keep it moving on.
You do your episode on breath support. I'll talk about resonance. We'll talk about musical theater, belt mix legit.
This just became a vocal technique podcast. Sorry, Christina.
It's okay. I'm really great at hair metal. Here I go again. Whitesnake, really, I'm telling you, it's a crowd pleaser.
Amazing.
Always.
Another aspect that people sort of tie to her vocal decline is that her personal life kind of becomes riddled with scandals at this point, or what the media seems obsessed with calling scandals and focusing on. One of the big things that sort of clouds over this period in her life is that she separates from her husband around 1959. Around the same time, she starts having an affair with Aristotle Onassis. Now, if you know the last name Onassis, you probably, what does that name bring up for you guys?
Jackie O, baby.
Jackie O's husband.
Aristotle Onassis was a wealthy Greek businessman.
He better be with that name.
He was known as something of a playboy and a, quote, collector of beautiful women. And apparently they met 2 years before at a party. And he was already married, but he said some really nasty things about he realized he didn't want to be with his bland wife, and that as they were the two most famous Greeks in the world, he felt that like he should get to know her. They should be together.
Cool.
They have an affair.
That makes me think of like Nia Vardalos and John Stamos.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the two most famous Greek people I can think of.
I feel like they'd be delightful, though. I don't know. I feel like the chemistry would be different. So also around this time, so she starts this very, I suppose, widely known affair with Onassis that goes on for like close to a decade, maybe 9 years. She's also at this time, she's canceling a lot of performances. Her voices are clearly suffering, and she's also being seen out and about. So she can't really rely on the narrative that she's ill. And instead, people sort of start to remark that she's no longer this like Vestal virgin. Like she is partying it up too much. And that's why she's losing her voice. This to me doesn't square with the masterful, dedicated, and exacting technician that we know her to be from her early days studying. I think that there is this idea of like the diva being sort of like selfish and frivolous and careless, and like I just think I always really am struck by what an intelligent and like deeply dedicated technician and musician she was.
It's so interesting. This whole time I've been jotting down notes because I asked early on, I was like, oh, like she's an it girl. And honestly, and like the way we've been like peppering in other people, and I've been like, she fucking follows so much of the it girl and like the way that we idolize a woman that we should be like obsessed with and we want to like model ourselves over. And I feel like she's got the raw talent that leads to this like uncharacteristic fame and then this meteoric rise, and they marry someone who's like kind of maybe questionable or like really wealthy or equally famous, and then they suddenly get this like massive movie makeover that usually involves like a lot of weight loss, and like they become a fashion plate and fashion is obsessed with them, and then it's the ridicule of like they're you know, it's like this weird ridicule where you can't win, and then there's always a scandal involved that like creates further ridicule, and then that allows us to be like, she's lost so much weight because like, and that's made her shittier, or was she shitty and that made her lose weight. Like it's just fascinating to me the way we like sick on this woman who is a bright talent.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's no wonder why when Billie Eilish first started popping off, she used to say, she's like, she wore enormously baggy clothes. There was a reason she didn't show her body. Because if you see, like now we've seen her since, she has this incredible curvaceous body, but she didn't show that off when she was first taking off, because she knew, like, at some part of her knew like how that would be perceived as a young female pop star. So she actively fought against it.
And not unlike, I imagine, Maria Callas and many other like young celebrities and things, you're growing in the public eye. Your body at 16 is so different than your body at 26 and your body at 36.
Yeah. Yes.
Can't win.
So all that is to say, the last decade of her career is marked by what are called uneven performances, lots of cancellations, and sort of unsuccessful projects. She appears in a film. She does TV appearances. She goes on some recital tours where you can listen to these recordings, and her voice is quite shot by this point. A New York Times headline in 1977 that featured an interview with her was, the headline was, "Callas talks on any topic but when she'll sing." So, yeah.
She's Rihanna. We're like, we don't need any more makeup. Please put out another album.
So from like roughly 1950 to let's say 1977 when this is happening, this whole time though, is she a fashion plate? Is like the fashion community obsessed with her?
Yes.
Fuck.
She looks incredible. And I think people maybe don't know as much her like 1970s style, but you should look it up. She looks incredible.
Googling.
But yeah, but she's not doing well personally.
That blows the big kielbasa.
That she is at the height of her looks fame, at the height of her fashion plate fame, but she's miserable and her natural talent is starting to decline. God, it's the amount of parallels with so many other sort of pop divas, of like the moment that they hit and become a huge star and are in the public eye, and then the demands that are made of them and their body and the intense scrutiny and the way that they change their bodies and the way that affects their talent and their ability to deliver what people love them for. It's just like, my God, like we've seen it time and time and time and time again, to the point that like when artists like Chapel Roan become famous, I just want to like grab her and be like, please just stay like this.
Please stay safe.
Please
Yeah.
stay pure and
Please stay
lovely
safe.
and in your 20s, and like, thank you for making music.
Wait,
Don't let them destroy you.
I want to ask a question. I made a note earlier, and you did she get into? I think you said she got into movies, but like when she first lost weight, was she screen testing? Because I feel like this is like a long-standing thing of like when we look back at screen tests from the 40s and 50s and earlier, a big thing was like people have faces for movies, and especially in a black and white film, like a really cut jaw, like very sharp angular features and wide eyes that are really easy to see on camera become like incredibly attractive.
You know, I have not read anything specifically stating that, but this is around when we start to get video recorded performances.
Interesting.
And I wouldn't be surprised if on some level, and it's just like people are getting photographed more. We start to have TV appearances. So even if she wasn't deliberately screen testing, I think that celebrities of any kind must have been becoming much more visible throughout these different new media in a way that they never had before.
Think about who was our most attractive president at what time period. Like, there is a huge reason that Kennedy was an incredibly handsome man.
On television, but not on radio.
He won the debate against Nixon on TV because he looked young and beautiful.
And Nixon looked sweaty.
Yeah, the way that like video and film changed. Because if you are not able to go to the Metropolitan Opera House and hear Maria Callas sing Tosca, but you can get a recording, you can be a fan of Maria Callas from afar and only ever see images of her, like just see like pictures of her. But a live performance is very, very different. And how someone looks in this era, I know that's a whole, this is a bit of a tangent, but I know that's a conversation now in opera about who gets cast in these lead roles, and it's starting to be a lot more about their looks than about their talent.
This is a huge thing, and I think it's always been somewhat present, as we can see by the comments that were made about Callas's body back in the 1950s. But yes, specifically in my lifetime, in the time that I was a student till now, the opera houses started doing these live casts. Where they would broadcast a live performance to be shown at movie theaters around the country. And it was like a big money-making thing. And it really changed casting. And it changed, singers having to like worry about their appearances in a way that like, it's kind of frustrating. Like, this is a little bit of a side tangent, but opera has always kind of been a bit body neutral because the voice has to come first. Like,
it's always been you always think about like when the fat lady sings, like it's always about like nobody has ever been, you think about somebody like Jessie Norman, like would she be a star today?
Big voices come in big bodies, and that's the voice that it takes to sing this particular role, then we accept that this, person with a body that like isn't maybe how we would conceive of a beautiful 16-year-old maiden, like tough titties, they're the voice that can sing it. But it has started to change. And I know that also, as opera houses bring in directors that are not of the operatic tradition, I've heard from people on the inside that one of the frustrating changes is that these directors are casting off of headshots, not off of voices, which completely turns the art form on his head. So something I left out, and it's funny you mentioned John F. Kennedy. So her affair with Onassis starts around 1959. By 1968, I just want to highlight human bucket of dicks, Aristotle Onassis. He marries Jacqueline Kennedy, and Maria doesn't find out until 3 weeks before the wedding.
No!
And by many accounts, they continued to see each other and have a secret affair in Paris. He was like the last great love of her life. But it also sounds like it was a really controlling and abusive relationship at the same time, which again, like we look at this childhood trauma, we look at this sort of everything she went through, and it's maybe not that surprising. But all this is to say, her personal life takes like many sad turns. She is jilted in favor of, in my opinion, the more like acceptable wife material. So to summarize all of that, her dramatic weight loss maybe contributes to her vocal loss. Her turbulent personal life maybe contributes to her vocal issues. But what we did not know until the year of our Lord, 2002, is that Maria Callas had actually been suffering from a long-term inflammatory disease, possibly since about the age of 30. She had a condition called dermatomyositis. And we know this because a physician, a neurologist named Mario Giacovazzo, went and examined her at her apartment in Paris towards the end of her life, where she was, by all accounts, a recluse. Onassis had died in 1975. Perhaps this kind of sparked a depression at the last 2 years of her life. She wasn't singing. She wasn't doing much. She's examined by Giacovazzo, and he diagnoses her with dermatomyositis. So I'm going to read a Wikipedia description of what this disease is. It is a long-term inflammatory disorder which affects connective tissue. Its symptoms are generally a skin rash and worsening muscle weakness over time. These may occur suddenly or develop over months. Others may include weight loss, fever, lung inflammation, or light sensitivity. So like, not to be like 2010 internet, but let that sink in.
So I did a thing.
So much this. So it turns out her symptoms are actually first described going back to around the age of 30, and letters that she wrote that surfaced after her death from about the 1950s to the 1970s detail symptoms she was experiencing, which included rashes, low blood pressure, metabolism issues, vision loss, vertigo, and flu-like symptoms. And you know what's really going to burn your toast? Is that both her husband at the time, Meneghini, and her doctors told her she was just being a nervous, hysterical hypochondriac.
I'm going to flip the fucking desk. I'm going to flip it.
I hate it.
Yep. And this just kind of broke my heart. And basically, Giacovazzo diagnosed her. He said when he went to see her, she had the classic presentation of the rash on her neck and chest. And all of her symptoms confirmed that this was what she had. Now, there is still no cure for this disease. It's not even known if it's autoimmune or if it's the result of a viral infection. At the time, they treated it with steroids, which is what he did. That is the treatment that Callas received. And we still treat it with steroids. Of course, there are also other things like immunosuppressants, different immunotherapies now, but there is still no cure. It is something that is merely, the symptoms are managed.
And doesn't taking steroids fuck up your voice?
It absolutely does, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Were they prescribing her steroids earlier on at any point for like just treating symptoms?
It's very possible that she had received steroids like back in the 60s.
Fuck.
To help her get through performances, which is something that performers still do.
Yeah.
But
oh my God, there's nothing better than if you get sick while you're working as a performer in any capacity, you get an injection of B12 and a steroid. And honestly, you get why fucking Judy has a gleam in her eye.
So I just want to give a moment to consider this, that perhaps her weight loss could have also been attributed to this disorder.
Fuck.
Certainly her vocal troubles would have been worsened by this disorder, right? Because this affects the connective tissue, the soft tissue of the body, which if you don't know, your vocal folds are just mucous membrane. And also her whole breath support system, her ability to support her voice using the muscular strength of her body would have been compromised.
Wow.
Plus, feeling like shit is not a good way to sing well.
And all of
right?
that is taking place while she is reaching for the time, it sounds like pretty meteoric rise of fame to like
absolutely
the culture.
Absolutely meteoric to like icon status.
Wow. And like, was she as iconic when she was in that first 10 years of singing, or was it really after when she became like the fashion plate that's really the apex?
You know, I don't really know the answer. I think among the opera world, it was known that she was a generational talent, but she became a tabloid celebrity after that when she looked like the image of her that we have in our minds.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth. Elizabeth edits for us, and she's gonna have to edit out so many whispered fucks because just every time I am horrified.
It's
Right?
true. It's like it's amazing how this pattern repeats.
Isn't it? And
And
it made me think of like desiring the consumption body, knowing that these people were suffering so much. It made me think of that Ankh painting of that woman who was probably an it girl, a wealthy person's wife, who is painted as this like beauty to be admired, and she was dying of consumption. And it just makes me think that to answer our question that we always pose in our intro, no, nothing ever changes.
the language changes.
Zero things change.
Yeah.
So Maria Callas dies in 1977 at the age of 53 of a heart attack.
Quite young.
And this is probably related to her dermatomyositis, because weakening of muscles can include weakening of the cardiac muscle. She dies at her home, reportedly alone, where she has been living as a recluse for a couple of years. Dr. Giacobazzi comes forward in 2002. He's quoted in an article in an Italian newspaper saying, "I am tired of people saying she died of a broken heart. And I'm tired of people saying that she died because she partied too hard. She had a disease. I diagnosed her, and I don't want her to be remembered this way."
Round of applause.
Dr. Giacobazzi.
Right?
Well done. Well done.
Feminist icon.
I was right. Feminist icon, ally, Mario Giacobazzi.
Ally.
I was very moved by that.
Yes.
I was very, very moved by that. And I know there's probably like something to be said about disclosing somebody's medical information who isn't there to give permission. But she had been deceased for, 25 years at this point. And I just love that he was like, I am tired of people saying she partied her way to death or died of a broken heart over human bucket of dicks, Onassis.
Yeah.
It's also like that. It's such a more romantic or, idea that she died of a broken heart. I don't know if romantic is the word, but just like
mythological.
Yes, mythological. Her diva mythology, that she was so like wrapped up with her passions and
does this remind you of anything from the consumption episode?
100%.
Yes. She's 100%. An angel of the home.
What an angel of the home. She has this romantic, artistic constitution, this temperament that just
she's
predisposes her. She's a genius who will meet a tragic end because...
And she got better the weaker she got, like in the public eye. That was the thing, right? Like the sicker you got, the less it like took down your kind of negative traits. It degrades like the sharpness about you, or like, they were saying at the time of consumption, like the fuller you were, that you were like more dull or less interesting. And she became more interesting the thinner she got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, I mean, it's so insidious. It's like a fucking tapeworm.
So yeah, I am so glad you both had the same reaction that I did, because I think it says a lot about people's assumptions about artists, about women. And I think as three professional performers, I find like I really don't like media like Black Swan. I don't like this myth of like the artist must kill themselves. The true creative genius will destroy themselves for the perfect performance, because granted, there's a lot of like self-destructive behavior and toxic behavior amongst our colleagues, but most working artists I know are it's a job. It's a passion, but it's a job, and taking care of ourselves is really important.
Like, so that's the thing too that kills me, is like, I feel like that again, that mythology has been indoctrinated into us for so long, this like idea of genius and what it costs you and blah, blah, blah. And it's about you and it's destructive and the darkness. But like, our jobs are our entire bodies. And if our bodies are fucked up, we can't go to work.
And very often we have to. Maria Callas kept showing up and going to work even after her body was very sick and failing her. And I think that you can talk about her selfishness or her need to cancel these performances, but I think what I'm struck by, like, she kept putting in the work for the most part and gave many, many performances when she was not at her peak. And I think we all know what it's like to have to do that.
Oh,
And
100%.
they were still, I will say, masterful performances, even if her vocal instrument was somewhat compromised. So I want to end with Maria's own words, because so much has been said about her entire life and after her death. And so these were her final parting words after a series of master classes that she gave at Juilliard in the 1970s. And if you are a theater person, you might know of the play Masterclass by Terrence McNally, which is based on these classes, which are fully recorded. You can listen to all of them. But this is what she says to her students as she wraps up the final class. But I want you to please try and remember, please try and make it, that all this effort is not wasted, that you should take whatever little I've given you and bring it into the other scores and increase it, in courage, in phrasing, in diction. Encourage again, I say, because it's not an easy career. Don't ever think that it's an easy career. So for thanks, the only thing I want is that you sing properly, that you apply whatever knowledge I've given to you to your scores. That's the only thing I can say for the time being, each and every one of you. It doesn't stop here. It has to keep going because you're supposed to follow up what we have done. Whether I keep singing or not doesn't make any difference. You are the younger generation and you must apply it. And that's the only thanks that I really do want. Keep on going and in the proper way, not with fireworks, not with an easy applause, but with the expression of the words and the diction and your real feeling, whatever it is. This is what I want to say, and I'm not good at words. So that's that.
That's lovely.
So yeah, what do you think about that?
I really enjoy the idea of like that she changed the art form and then she was like, go and do the work and see what newness you can bring.
Absolutely.
I think there's something lovely about that. I also think it's interesting that like for as fireworks and jazzy as her, frankly, like I know I keep harping on this, but like her it girl life, like that she said no fireworks. Like at the end of the day, she was a consummate professional.
And that it was about the work too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. And every single one of us has been in a classroom or an audition, like where somebody has told you, only do this if you can't do anything else. This is not easy. Like that is the refrain of being a professional performer, is like, don't do this because you want fireworks. Do this because you love the work and because there's nothing else that you could do. That's not entirely true, by the way. Like all of us have gone on to, do other stuff, but at the same time.
But it is really, really hard.
Yeah, it is incredibly hard.
The hard times outweigh the fun applause times.
Yeah.
You have to love it. And I think people forget that it's not actually the game of fame. And actually fame can be kind of shitty.
As exemplified with Maria Callas, who was on the exact same path as so many different famous female singers. Like that is that if there's one thing we've learned from this entire episode, besides just setting the record straight on an incredibly iconic singer, it's that there is absolutely a trend in the different benchmarks that each famous female singer in the public eye follows.
Each it girl, it made me think of Evelyn Nesbit. It made me think of Edie Sedgwick. Like there's a lot to these people that it is such a clear pathway.
And how much your body and how you are presented and what you're like, all of that stuff. How much it affects how people think about you and how they speculate about your life and create rumors about you that end up following you forever and ever.
It's your currency.
When really just who you were was somebody with talent and training who took off and became a public commodity and therefore became somebody for people to speculate on and demand of. We've seen it a million times, and she is a singular talent, but she is also one of many who have been a part of this rise and downfall, which is very unfortunate. But I'm glad we got to talk about her today, and I learned a lot about Maria Callas because, once again, the Kevin Aquan book is really like the extent of my knowledge of her. So it's fun to dive into, and it's also really fun to talk inside baseball about singing.
Absolutely.
That's always a fun conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you for letting me talk about this person, this figure that's been very important to me. And I think, give us a lot to think about as we go forward about, when you look at a fashion icon, like go beneath the surface and all of these pressures and misconceptions and assumptions that we make about our celebrities and women in general and how they look and move through the world is just something that I think we're going to see a lot of it throughout every era that we cover.
Hopefully we get kinder. Hopefully.
I hope so.
Oh, like as people, but I don't think the podcast is gonna.
Oh, we're not getting kinder. Oh, no.
I was gonna say I don't.
Don't hold out for that.
I don't want our audience to hold out for but don't worry. Next time we're gonna be like, and they were fine.
The next episode is the Pollyanna episode, so just get ready.
Shall I do the outro? Well, that's our show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, please tell your friends and be sure to follow us on @VanityVeritasPod on all social media platforms. We'll be back in a couple weeks. In the meantime, remember, trends come and go, but vanity is timeless.